The unsent message. It started, as these things always do, with something small. A phone buzzed in Jake's pocket as he sat in the dark, mindlessly watching the late-night news. The anchor's voice was a dull hum, and he could barely make out the flickering images on the screen. He wasn't expecting any messages at this hour. It was 2:13 a.m., a time for drunks and insomniacs, neither of which Jake considered himself. When he glanced at the screen, the notification was strange. No sender, no subject, just the words, unsent message. Maybe it was a glitch, or spam. He opened it, thumb hesitating over the screen. Remember the accident? Jake's heart skipped a beat. His mind flashed back. The accident? Was this someone from his past? Someone who knew? He'd spent years trying to forget. A sick joke, maybe. He deleted the message, tossed the phone onto the couch, and tried to push it out of his head. Minutes later, his laptop pinged. He hadn't touched it in hours, yet the notification blinked on the screen, demanding attention. When he opened the lid, there it was again, staring at him with a chilling familiarity. You weren't the only one hurt. The word sent a cold prickle down his spine. This wasn't random. This wasn't some random spam bot. Someone knew. Someone was digging up the past and they wanted him to remember. Jake shut the laptop with a trembling hand. He hadn't told anyone about the accident. No one knew. Not anymore. The silence in the room seemed to thicken. The air grew heavy, pressing against his chest. He checked the door. Locked. The windows? Secure. His phone buzzed again. You thought it was over. Jake's blood ran cold. How could anyone know about that night? He deleted the message, then powered off the phone entirely. Maybe it was just a sick prank, someone messing with him. But deep down in that place where fear festers, he knew better. This felt personal, targeted. The next morning he woke to another message, this time waiting for him on his phone's lock screen, even though he was sure it had been off. We never forget. Jake's hands shook as he read the words. He tried resetting his phone, erasing everything, but the message returned within minutes, haunting him on every device he touched. When he got to work, the messages continued, bleeding into his day. On his work computer, a new email notification. The subject line simply read, "It wasn't an accident." Panic rose in his chest. He clicked it open, despite himself. Inside, there was no body text, just an attached photo. A close-up shot of shattered glass, blood on concrete. He recognized it. He could see his reflection in the broken pieces, a ghost of the moment he tried so hard to erase from his life. At this point, he couldn't focus. His co-workers threw concerned glances his way as he stumbled through meetings, his head buzzing. Was this real? Was he being hunted? He tried to remember everything about that night, about the faces, the screams, but it was all a blur. How did they know? On his drive home, his car's GPS flickered. Instead of showing directions, the screen simply displayed a single sentence. You should have checked the passenger seat. Jake slammed on the brakes. Heart pounding, he twisted around, half expecting to see a figure lurking in the back seat. But it was empty. The seatbelt dangled loosely, as if mocking him. He could still remember that sound. The unmistakable snap of a belt as it failed to hold, the way the body flew. The fear was becoming unbearable. He rushed home, locked the door, and tried to calm his racing thoughts. He sat on the edge of the bed, head in his hands. His phone buzzed again, but he refused to look. He had to keep it together. He had to. The TV blinked on by itself. Static filled the screen. Then slowly, text emerged in pixelated letters. We're all waiting for you, Jake. His pulse pounded in his ears. He could feel his reality fracturing, bit by bit. Was he losing his mind? Was this his guilt eating him alive? He hadn't been thinking when it happened. It was dark. The rain had been coming down in sheets, and the other driver? He never saw them coming. He had survived, but the others, they hadn't. Jake shut off the TV and pulled the blinds tight. He felt suffocated. The messages continued throughout the night, taking over every screen, every device. You left us behind. Your silence was louder than our screams. Do you think they'll believe you? Jake began to see faces in the reflections on his phone, in the mirrors, in every dark corner of his apartment. He could feel them, the shadows of the people he couldn't save. No matter how much he tried to forget, they were there, waiting, demanding. At 3 a.m., the final message came. His phone lit up, vibrating so hard it fell off the table. He couldn't stop himself from looking this time. His trembling hand reached for it, and the screen displayed, "We're already inside." Looked around the apartment, eyes darting to every corner. The walls seemed to pulse, the air too thick to breathe. Shadows moved where there should have been none. And then he heard it, the soft, shuffling footsteps. He backed against the wall, eyes wide. His heart pounded in his chest as the lights flickered. Something shifted in the darkness, a vague, blurred shape approaching, slow and deliberate. His phone buzzed one last time, and with trembling fingers, he checked the screen. "Open the door." There was a knock, not from the front door, but from inside, from the closet where he kept the clothes he hadn't worn in years. His body trembled as he turned the knob, hands slick with sweat. The door swung open, and the last thing Jake saw was the shattered reflection of his own terrified face in the broken mirror inside.